Lately I've been reminiscing, contemplating on how time played tricks on reality. Need a pro's vision. You was the apple of my eye till I finger pinched it. It never hurt to zoom out and see the bigger picture. What happens when you love your but the growing pangs of growing up got us all growing different. Always to my own admission. Most times I'm somewhere between delusion and healthy living. You showed your true colors, I still gave forgiveness. But if I showed mine, I get killed by the witness. Thought the glass was half full till you started spilling. Conversations ice cold since I started chilling. The fall off is necessary. The hurt made me legendary. Now these songs be sanctuary to the lovers and friends, the ones who loved and lost and loved and lost and flipped it off. Now they back loving again, at least until the summer begins. We all know how that story ends. Caught up in the cycle, my friends. Talk about the human experience. I pray one day we all get a grip. Until then, we just gotta live. And that don't mean to simply exist. You can't just let the soul disappear. You gotta add your own little twist. Yeah, you can trust in me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Visionary Shorts, where we seek to introduce you to topics that I'm thinking of and wanting to speak about, but in a shorter format. I know some of you all don't know who I am. 7 minutes is a good sweet spot for you to get to know some of the things that I think about and maybe be curious enough to go over to the long-form content of this same exact topic. So without further ado, we'll jump into today's episode, which is all about seeing in our boys and healing the man, right? Healing to me is also another way to say that would be freeing. But that's what we want to talk about today. And all this sparked and stemmed from an episode of Club Shay Shay where Shannon sat down with Michael Beasley, who we all know as a phenomenal basketball player. And I mean, one of the ones, one of his slogans is "We the ones." He definitely was top two, not two of his class. And he was probably in the top 10 to 20 in the classes that preceded him, let's say 1 to 2 years, and then who followed him 1 to 2 years. He was one of those guys that you looked at as a generational talent. But a lot of what he talked about with that woven in was about how all that he dealt with during those childhood years was not being addressed because no one ever saw beyond his ability on a basketball court. So jumping right in, we want to talk about the pain that no one applauded, right? And that basically is just saying that this young man was going through a lot. He had poverty, right? He had to be somewhat of a provider when he became of a certain age to his family to make sure that not only was he good, but they were good as well, right? So you have that aspect of it. And we want to just talk about how no one goes beyond the gifting, the admiration of the gifting, and the elite nature of the individual with the gifting that they admire, right? This person remains invisible, right? No one sees them beyond what they can do in the field that they're in this case, on the basketball court, right? What happens when boys, the only thing people see is what they produce? What happens when that happens, right? And a lot of what Michael Beasley talked about in the interview shows you what happens. There's a delay in development in some crucial areas. But this episode is not about basketball, right? Or it would kind of prove his point. This episode is more so about the fact that we fail to see boys on a deeper level beyond what they can produce, beyond who they can protect, beyond what they provide, right? And so we need to move into this idea of the illusion of being seen, right? So we got perform well, get noticed. Don't perform, people disappear. Say that one more time. Perform well, you get noticed. This is the contract that boys are often conditioned under. You perform well, you're at the top of the top, whatever you're doing. It can be academic, it can be athletic, it can be socially, right? You get noticed. As soon as that performance drops, or if it just goes away altogether, you can't perform, you stop. The same people who saw you will disappear, right? And using Beasley as a mirror, Basketball was his language, and grief took his voice. He briefly tells a story about how, and we all see it, it was probably on Shaq and the Fool at the time. When he was with the Lakers, he had the practice shorts on instead of the game shorts. During that time, he lost his mother, who he had a complicated relationship with, and he lost his good friend to violence. Two things that were super, super pivotal in his life, right? He loses a mother who he had some issues with due to how she controlled his relationship or lack thereof with his father, then finding out that his father actually wanted to have a relationship with him, right? Loses his mother, and I don't think at the time that they were talking that much. Then he loses a good friend, a best friend of his, to violence. And all anybody could do is laugh at this man for wearing practice shorts to the game. So Shannon's question, his follow-up question to him sharing that story, in that he talks about LeBron and Magic, and I won't go too deep in that in this, but he talks about LeBron and Magic even laughing at him, right? Two people who he had respect for. He has another run-in with LeBron. A lot of it seems to be that LeBron was underdeveloped in an emotional intelligence sense, which makes sense. Coming from poverty, coming from survival, there's no time for all of that. I got to make it. So I put all my all into this sport that can take me out of the situation, take me and my family out of the situation that I'm in, so that I can be able to provide for my family and things of that nature. So Shannon asked, did people know what you were going through? And the question is so relevant. Basically his explanation of what happened. And the response by Beasley was chilling. He goes, no, I didn't know how to tell anybody, right? So when we teach boys that being seen is not a thing that they should look for, right? We teach them, basically we're not teaching them how to be seen. We're teaching them the wrong ways or the most shallow ways to be seen. How much money you have, how much, power you have. If you're physically imposing, are you the fastest? Are you the best at what you're doing, right? We're teaching them all those ways to be seen, but we're not teaching them how to be seen as humans with a fullness of character and identity, particularly in the emotional sense, right? We're not teaching them how to be seen, and so we only teach them how to perform, like I mentioned, to be the best at what you do, but never really exposing who you are, right? Or attaching what you do to who you are. A lot of people say, how you prepare or how you practice is a reflection of who you are, and in some cases that's true. But in many cases, it really isn't, because it doesn't show the deficits. It doesn't show the insecurities. It doesn't show the places where you feel less than. It doesn't show all those things. It just shows that you can use this thing, right? And many athletes, I believe, do this. They use the sport, they use the preparation to be the best, to kind of block out all of the human aspects of who they are and focus on just production and performance in a way that people will honor and respect them, which feels like being seen, but it really isn't, because it's such a narrow, shallow way of being seen. It doesn't really encompass the fullness of who you are as a human. Now, what happens when boys' pain has no vocabulary? Michael Beasley says, no, I didn't know how to tell anybody. What happens when boys' pain has no vocabulary? And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a longer episode. So what happens is, the next thing in that interview Michael Beasley does that's pretty chilling is he tells him, as he's crying, telling the story about childhood, he tells Shannon, just act like you don't see me. Just pretend like you don't see me. That's it. And on the surface, you might say, oh, he was afraid to be vulnerable. He was embarrassed. And in reality, what I saw, and based off the things that I saw in the whole interview, I saw a man who was used to that, who was conditioned to be upset, who was conditioned to be hurt, traumatized, who was conditioned to be hungry physically, and for people to just look beyond it and only focus on his ability athletically, right? So he was actually far more comfortable with the idea that he would be crying. I think he was fine with crying, and that Shannon would ignore him just like everybody else did throughout his life. just ignore him and, make sure that, things status quo, that things are the same as they've always been, that whenever I'm in pain, right, people don't, necessarily pay attention to what's going on for me, right? They always look past it. It's something he's used to. It's something he's used to. Unseen boys become unseen men, right? You have this idea, I see a lot of times it's being floated around. It talks about like how men just are only loved for what they can do, what they bring to the table, so to speak. And I come against that idea. I come against it. And I think it starts with us as men, beginning to heal ourselves, but also supporting each other in that healing process. So in turn, we would heal each other and begin to change and shift and control the narrative about what masculinity is, right? And stop doing the same old when it comes to that. But to kind of jump into, what happens when men go unseen their whole lives is a mocking of vulnerability. So when you see a vulnerable man, oh, he's soft. He must have been raised by his mom. These are things that I've been told online when I respond to certain things in a more vulnerable manner. Oh, you was raised by your mom. You was coddled your whole life, not realizing, unlike them, right? I had my dad in my life until he passed in 2021. And when I say in my life, I'm talking in my house. I'm talking lived with my dad as a married man with a child, lived with my dad. That's how deep my dad was in my life. So it's so funny when I see people say that, I just laugh. I scoff at it, just to kind of make it elevated. I'm like, you simple-minded fool. If only you knew. My parents were married my whole life. Parents were married my whole life until they couldn't be anymore when my dad passed away in 2021. So all that nonsense is crazy to me, and it doesn't bother me. That's why I take everything online with a grain of salt, and you should too. That's a good little plug right there. But unseen men mock vulnerability. Pain laughs at pain. Going back to Brown laughing at Beasley. Not even thinking he could be in some kind of pain. He could be distraught, and this is why he's distracted. Just laughing, right? With everybody else, like everybody else did. This is not to even attack Brown. I know some of y'all use that to attack Brown, but that's just what we do as men. Oh, you soft, man. Get out of here. Man, you're supposed to be doing your job. You're supposed to be elite. I don't want to hear none of that. You should be locking in. I understand these people make hundreds of millions of dollars, but not taking into account all the things they have to go through. They go through things just like we go through things. I understand. A lot of these guys come from situations where they come from where we come from. Yeah, they got hundreds of millions now, but they didn't always have that. I don't look at many of them. Now, the ones that want to be looked at that way, they make it clear and they live that way. But I don't look at them the same way I look at like old money, family, 100 millionaires / billionaires. I don't look at them the same way. I do believe they should be doing more and they could do more. But I don't look at them necessarily the same way because there's not a culture behind the money that they have. They're new money. They're kind of creating a culture now, but there's a culture around old money. And it starts with or ends with superiority or supremacy. But you get it. There's a culture around that. So, we look at that, right? And I said, pain lasts at pain. Men don't attack vulnerability because it's weak, right? That's not why they're attacking vulnerability. They attack it because it reminds them of what they never received. They never received vulnerability, but they never received support. They never received care. They never received compassion. They never saw those things either. So it was never modeled for them. They didn't see men doing those things, right? The best thing a man does for a man that they know is struggling is, you're going to be all right, man. You'll get through it. No tears, no weakness, no pain. I remember that dude who was like the young Jamaican guy who was a basketball player too. And he was big on that as well. No weakness, all strong, and tap his muscles and all that kind of stuff. And that's the mindset. I get it. He was doing it for social media, and maybe he is more, as a comprehensive man. I believe he would be a man by now. And he was just doing it for social media. It worked. Engagement was there and all that good stuff. But that's the mindset. No weakness, which is impossible if you're a human. It's impossible. What's up, everybody? I just wanted to take a pause really quick at this point in the video. I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and I look forward to you getting to experience the rest of it. But I'd be remiss without asking you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Oh, and hit that notification bell too. That way you'll know when new content from Tucker Media Nexus through Visionary Rhetoric, Lifted Convos, or 2B1 is being uploaded. Please tap in, please support, and have a great one, beloved. I don't like to say things are impossible, but it's impossible not to have weaknesses as a human. And so as men, we have to really see ourselves as human and not as these droids, right? These droids of provision, these droids of protection, these droids of just get through, push through. It can't always just be that, right? It's a cycle, though. And this cycle takes us to an adulthood that reflects the training that we learned in our childhood. What kind of things are we teaching our boys, right? Protect, provide, push through. Protect, provide, push through. What is missing in that? Emotional literacy, processing skills, and permission to pause. That's what's missing, those three things, from those three things. If we're only teaching protect, provide, push through, there's no emotional literacy, there's no processing skills being developed, and there's no ability for a pause or permission to pause, meaning when you need to take some time. I've heard men say, men don't take off, men don't take breaks. Well, what you mean you sick? Man, if you don't take some cold medicine and get to work? But this is why so many men, black, white, Asian, Latino, drive themselves to an early grave because we don't take care of ourselves. We take care of our cars better than we take care of ourselves. We got to stop that, man. We take care of our cars, right? It's funny. If you see men together, right, and they have any understanding of cars, and they come up and you got your car running, hey, man, what's that sound? Oh, man, that don't sound right. That sound like a such and such. Hold on. Let me see. Pop the hood. We take it. You know what? You need to get this to the shop. Don't sound something sound off. It's not a lot, but it's something like we pick up on that, but we don't pick up when brother, you need to get to the doctors. You don't look well. You need to go get checked up. When the last time you got a checkup? That's physical health. Brother, you need some therapy. You're going through a lot. All the stuff you just told me you and your wife are going through. You need to, come on, brother. You need to go get that checked out. Go get your mind checked out. See how you dealing with that, how you processing all of that. Man, I think y'all should go. You know what? I got a referral for you. Me and my wife did couples therapy. Instead, what men do, therapy don't work. Because you think therapy is about the solution. Like we supposed to get the solution as quick as possible. That the therapist is supposed to give you the solution. Well, they got all them degrees. Why can't they help? This is stuff I heard men say. It's not like I'm making it up on the top of my head. Therapy don't work. It's a waste of time and money. Yet your marriage and your family is crumbling and falling apart because you won't do therapy for yourself or for you and your wife. And in some cases, you might need it for your whole family, depending on what's going on in that season in your life. It's a space for everybody to feel safe to say what they need to say about where you are in the season that you're in. But again, moving right along. Feelings are seen as failures, when in reality, they're just data. Feelings are, I used mirror earlier, but feelings are like a mirror. It's like a mirror, right? It reflects what's happening in the season, the moment that you're in. That's it. Now, how you process them will be a direct impact on the income, on the outcome, I should say, of that, whatever's going on, of how you're feeling about what's going on. and how you move forward. So what we teach though is suppression. So you wind up, right? Having financial issues, right? Having financial issues. Crank, 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 man up. Crank, 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 suck it up. Stop all that crying, right? Just suppressing everything, never processing, suppressing. Crank, 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 pop, right? And that's what happens. Eventually, right? Emotions are data. So data in has to come out. We're humans. Has to come out somewhere. So that could come out in many ways, right? You could have people struggling with alcoholism, right? Don't even know it. I'm talking about beginning phases. Not saying you just full-blown alky. Like beginning phases, not really knowing what's going on, just struggling, right? And so when we suppress, right, it doesn't eradicate emotional expression. It reschedules it, right? It reschedules it, meaning it's a rain check, right? You just delayed it for now, but it's going to happen. No different than the Phillies game being rained out. Oh, we got to leave now, but this game's going to happen at some point. Or we got to wait now. I don't think they always leave. Sometimes they try to wait it out. But it's going to happen. We're going to finish this game. Same difference. Suppression doesn't eradicate emotional expression. It's going to come out. This is where you get murder, suicides. This is where you get mass shootings. This is where you get violent behavior, aggressive behavior. This is where you get harsh tones, harsh words, whatever, right? This is where you get all of that when you suppress, and never process. And guess what? When it comes back louder, just like the things I just mentioned. Just because of stacking, right? In the suppression, you're stacking your emotional response to things that need to be addressed. You just stack. So finally, when that new date comes, right? When the rescheduled date comes for that stuff to come out, it's an explosion because you've been suppressing it for so long. So what we need to start teaching boys is to stop rescheduling the expression of emotions that they have, right? And so how do we heal men? This is the big question, the big idea. This is kind of to wrap this up. How do we heal men? We have to see the boy in the man, right? We have to see the boy in the man. You know, we got people walking around, they quote, and this is a quote, I'm a grown man. They got their chest out. They got their guard up. They refuse to be vulnerable. You don't heal the man by ignoring the boy. So I don't care how many times you tell me you're a grown man. You're a hurt little boy. That's what you are. And that's no disrespect to you. That's no disrespect to anybody, quite frankly. Or that's no downgrade of your manhood. But you're a hurt little boy. You've never dealt with the hurt. You've never dealt with the hurt. And so because you never dealt with the hurt, you carry that with you, whether you acknowledge it or not. And it comes out in different ways. It comes out in different ways. Sometimes those ways are self-harming. And in other ways, and what I mean by that, just disclaimer, I'm not talking about, mental health, self-harming. I'm saying like doing things that are detrimental to your well-being while thinking that they're not, while thinking that they're okay. Bring back the drinking, bring back the drugs, bring back even overeating. Things you think are, net zero when it comes to the detriment of yourself, but are very harmful to your well-being, physically, mentally, spiritually, right? So the boy is a representative of weakness to be worked out, right? But that's not the case. What I'm saying is that the boy isn't a representative of something that needs to be worked out, right? Or a weakness that needs to be worked out. Rather, it's the source for the man. The boy is always in there. And you need to speak to the boy to heal the man. You have to speak to where the boy wasn't seen. You have to speak to where the boy's emotions weren't validated. You have to speak to where the boy was not trained or taught or conditioned or, instructed on, modeled before as well. That's a form of teaching. You have to speak to those things regarding the emotional development of the boy. And you have to go back and figure out where those things are. So relating back to Beasley, he wasn't a failing professional athlete. He isn't a failing professional athlete. He is a son that is grieving, a boy that was grieving, not just the loss of his mother and his friend, but also grieving his life in general. There's a level of grief that you carry when you deal with things like poverty, when you deal with things like just not feeling seen or cared for. Just those things alone, you have some grief. And especially if you come into some means like he has, right? And it hasn't been all easy for him, but doing pretty well for himself. And especially when you come into some means like that and you're able to take care of the people in your life, those things drudge up. While you're happy to do those things as a person who's going through them, I know they drudge up things of like, man, I wasn't cared for it like this. And you're still always looking for that. And I think he's found it. To me, that's the greatest thing about him doing the interviews that he's been doing, not just Club Shay Shay, but some other things he sat down and done. He's so philosophical, for one. And part of that is when you don't feel like you've been seen or you haven't been seen, you spend a lot of time alone. You do a lot of thinking. So he's probably done thinking on things that people are, so surface level with. And you can tell that he has. And I'm not saying whether or not he's right or wrong for anything that he's ever said. It's more so just knowing that you could tell that he's a deep thinker. And part of that comes from, feeling lonely and being lonely. But this aspect is where most conversations about masculinity get it wrong. This is where they get it wrong. They focus on what we might see as the outcome. Failure as an athlete, right? That's the outcome. But they fail to see the grieving, the hurt, the pain, all those things that may have led to what we consider to be a failure or a bust, as they like to say. They fail to acknowledge those things. They fail to even search for those things. They just want to classify. Guys like Stephen A. Smith, guys like Jason Whitlock, hate to even say their names. They're despicable men in my mind, and just their thought and their speech. Despicable men. I don't know what they do in their personal lives, but what they project on the airways is despicable. That's just how I feel about it. What they project is just despicable. And there's a word for those two guys. And I went back and forth. I used to think like, well, maybe no, maybe yes. Like, as far as that word, and I won't say it, but they are definitely that word. They are definitely that word. They embody that. They are in different levels, different extremes. They are the Uncle Ruckuses of the real world. But move right along from this. You shift from pain to possibility, right? Masculinity does not equal emotional absence. Masculinity equals emotional competence. Masculinity does not equal emotional absence. It equals emotional competence, right? So we have to name the emotions. We got to process the emotions. We got to regulate the emotions in that order. Those are things that are taught. They're taught. They don't just happen out of nowhere. You don't just grow and become a man, an adult, and you just know how to do those things. You have to be taught those things. Those things have to be modeled before you, right? So it's important for our boys. It's important for my son to see me name the emotion, process the emotion, and regulate the emotion so that he can not only hear me tell him that's what needs to happen, but also see me walk it, right? Your feelings matter, and you need the skills to manage them. That's it. You need the skills to manage them.
Yeah, you can trust in me.